Let's dive into lesson 2 or phase 2, the execution phase. Here we're going to talk through what's happening during those 45 minutes where the athletes are actually in front of you. So, this is typically how we recommend to break up your 45-minute baseline testing session. Those first 10 minutes are spent instructing the athletes on what to expect and how to use the app and use the test. The middle is the 15 to 20 minutes that it'll take the athletes to actually complete the Sports Plus protocol. And the last 15 minutes we like to use as a checkout time. So, where you can check in with the athletes, do a quick review of how their scores are, and maybe retest some portions of their baseline session if needed. So first up, in those initial 10 minutes as athletes are coming into the space and you're providing the instructions to them, this is where we like to refer to our baseline cheat sheet. So make sure you have that out. And this is the time for your spiel. So however you feel comfortable explaining how the process is going to go, please do that for you. Some important talking points that we like to highlight and that we've heard have been very successful in baseline testing mass amount of athletes. Once the athletes are gathered in the space, make sure that the app is downloaded. And that's something that we'll talk about that you can make sure the athletes have done before they even walk in to the baseline session. Once they are all in front of you, the group code that you have created for them, you're saving that to the very end. So hopefully the athletes are paying attention and you can start by explaining why baseline testing is important. This is how we're going to do this. This year, you're going to download this app called Sway Medical if you haven't already, and you'll be inputting a code. You're going to put your name, date of birth, some information about your medical history, and then you're going to have to take a balance test and 4 different tests about your brain function, memory, reaction time. I need you guys to follow the instructions. Read the instructions on your screen. Everything is going to be laid out for you. If you guys have questions, raise your hand quietly, and myself or any supporting staff will walk over and assist you. We've also heard from a lot of feedback from customers that after athletes finish the balance portion of the test, it's helpful to instruct the athletes to sit down on the ground, just right in the place that they were, and then they can concentrate on the cognition portion of the baseline test. We also recommend, or we've had people say in terms of instructing the athletes, the better you perform on these tests, and if you give best effort, you will finish this faster. This will be over and done with. And we'll talk about why that is in our baseline course in the more in-depth version. When it comes to phone settings, this is important to give these instructions to your athletes. So after your spiel of why baseline testing is important and what to expect, you're going to tell your athletes to make sure that their phones are on Do Not Disturb, not airplane mode. Ensure that all the phones are on Do Not Disturb. Do Not Disturb is important because you don't want athletes receiving a notification or a phone call in the middle of baseline testing. We also advise athletes to close out any of the other apps that might be open just to preserve some battery life. And this is also a time for you to just make sure that everyone's phones are working properly and there's no one with a really cracked screen that might need to use a different device for testing. So once you've provided those instructions during that first 10 minutes, at the very end, you are going to give that group code, the 5-digit group code that you created. They'll input that code when they hit enter code at the bottom of their screen, and they'll begin testing. As they work through, you and your staff can walk around and make sure that everything is going well. If they have questions, answer them. And then as they start to finish their baseline test, you'll see their names start to pop up and they'll have completed the test. This is a time where you can check in on the results and make sure that everything looks the way you want it to. When it comes to this portion of results interpretation, that's covered in course number 3 of our comprehensive guide. Most importantly for this crash course, I want to highlight our resources. So hopefully you have been referring to this baseline cheat sheet, and everything that we've talked about in this crash course is on this cheat sheet as well. This flyer over here, we consider the Sway Overview Flyer, or some people refer to it as the Parent Flyer. It gives just a quick overview of what Sway is and probably how you'll be using it in the school setting. But most importantly, it has the QR code on it. This will allow anyone to download the app. It'll take them directly to the Google or Apple App Store and hopefully allow your athletes to download the app before they get into the baseline session. So, some next steps. You survived the crash course. If you feel like you want or you have time to dive into interpreting the results of that baseline session, head over to course number 3 of our comprehensive guide, where we talk about what the results mean and how to manage them. And also, if you feel like this was way over your head and I was saying a bunch of terms that you never even heard of, jump into course number 1. That's our Sway Fundamentals course. That way you can just learn the lingo and feel a little more comfortable with everything that we talked about. Hope this helps and hope you feel comfortable baseline testing all of your athletes for this upcoming season.